Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Owning It podcast. I'm your host, Payavu, and I'm so excited for my next guest. I think when we forge our own path and when you own it, you think that you are meant to do something. And in talking with my guests, sometimes your path finds you no matter how hard you try to fight it. And sometimes it's other people telling you that you're good at this, and people finally listen and say, you know what? I am good at this. And that's what happened to my guest today. Everybody, please welcome Nana Badu, who is an image consultant and the founder of Badu Basics. Did I say everything correct?
You nailed it, Paya. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Woo, thank you. So I know that, you are busy and I want to be mindful of your time. And you consider yourself an image consultant. What is that all about?
Yeah, so I got my image consulting certification at FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, where I live, in Brooklyn to be exact. And
Ooh.
right, shout out to Brooklyn. And when I was going through my journey of understanding all of the different ways that you could be a stylist, I discovered this space of image consulting. And in image consulting, we talk about the ABCDs of image, which are your appearance, behavior, communication, and digital presence. And so we like to think about these four components and thinking about the totality of the way in which you present yourself to the world.
I love that. I love that. So, 2025, we're all about self love. We're all
Mhm.
about, you shouldn't judge someone by, a book by its cover. What, what do you say to that? Can you still judge? I mean, honestly, we still judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And why is image everything? Especially, I think, for us women. So, just to clarify, do you mainly work with women or do you work with men also?
Yeah. I think to your first question, that we do judge,
Mhm.
right? We all judge, we all have bias, we all see people and form thoughts and impressions, right? And so that it's commonly said that people form first impressions within the first few seconds of meeting someone, right? So think about the last time you saw someone, whether you were just walking down the street or you were at an event or a conference and a speaker was about to hit the stage, whatever the situation was. When you see that person, you start thinking things about them.
Mhm.
Right? You're like, "Oh, I like her haircut. That's cute." Or like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I don't know if that's her best color." Like, "Oh my gosh, they seem kind of frazzled." Or, "Oh my gosh, they have so much confidence. I think this is about to be an amazing talk." Right? You have all of these thoughts and impressions that are happening in your mind, and that's coming from a nonverbal interaction with this person. It's all based on what you see, right? That perception, that initial reaction. And we all do it. And I like to say, we all do the scan, right? You've seen someone and you just look them up from head to toe and you take it all in, whether you're commenting on something physically or in the way in which they're carrying themselves, right? All of these different impressions come off. So, just as much as you know that others are going to receive impressions about you, you also have impressions that are formed based on how others look. That's why it's so powerful to think about your style and your image and really using it as a nonverbal tool, because it's a nonverbal form of communication and is often the first thing that people see and interact with. So when you know that that's happening, you're in an amazing position of power, right? Like what kind of impression do you want to have? What do you want people to think about you when you're in the room and you first step in? What kind of energy, what kind of feeling do you want to have, right? Like that's totally up to you, and you can 100% communicate that through your style.
I love that. I love that. And so, in the beginning, my intro, I indicated that sometimes our path finds us. I talk to other people, on my, podcast. They're like, I always knew this about me. I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I never thought I was gonna be an entrepreneur. It was the furthest thing from my mind. And you, how did you become an image consultant? Because that is so specific.
Yeah, so I started my professional career in the corporate space. I was working as a management consultant in IT in the DC,
Mm,
Maryland, Virginia area.
wow.
And, my parents are from Ghana and West Africa. And, there are a few, tried and true parent approved professions that you're going to enter
The
into.
typical immigrant experience,
It's
right? The children
very
of immigrants.
there it is. Shout them out. If you're
Yeah.
not an immigrant, you already know, right? It's
Yes,
like,
yes,
oh,
I
you're gonna
do.
be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, maybe a nurse,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't want to do any of that. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll work in business. And
Mhm.
I definitely saw myself being like that dope corporate woman traveling through and having a corner office. And so I was on this path of like climbing the career and climbing the career ladder.
Yeah.
And I was feeling burnt out after the first few years of working in my role. I really loved it. I got to work on a bunch of different projects and be in a bunch of different spaces and work with a variety of different clients, but I was getting burnt out. um, and it was actually interesting because even when I first started in that role, I was doing things that I didn't even know were skills that I had, right? So I would come into work and I would wear a navy blue suit, but then I'd wear a head wrap that my mom just got, on her last trip coming back from Ghana, or I'd wear a black blazer, but I'd wear pink pants, right? And so
Mhm.
I always love to switch things up, and add color and add pieces of my culture. And I just thought it was fun. And that was something I did in college. And folks would compliment me on my style. But coming into the workplace, it didn't stop. I just thought, oh, it's a different place, but actually it's really important for me to find different and unique ways to stand out. I don't
Mhm.
want to be like everybody else. Like I always wanted to be different.
Mhm.
And I think kind of having that as like a value set, maybe, if you will,
Yeah.
right? It became part of my calling card. And my coworkers would be like, oh, Nana, every time you enter it's just so colorful and vibrant and energetic. And they're like, that makes total sense, because that's how you are with our clients. You're the one we want to send in to have the conversation with the client. You're always in some kind of communication role. And I was like, yeah, I love this. And so I was, unbeknownst to me, I think at that time, which is like, over 15 years ago, all right,
Mhm.
I was like building my personal brand, right? And my
Yeah.
style was a huge part of that. And so styling became something I was really interested in and passionate about. And so yeah, and that led me into a few years later when I was still working in the consulting space, because we got to get paid. Even though we have
Mhm.
these hobbies and these loves, I was like, oh, this is creative and I'm feeling
Side
burnt
job.
out. Right,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm
Yeah.
feeling burnt out, but like I still got to pay these bills. But I had an opportunity to style a photo shoot for a friend of mine, who is a musician. She's a vocalist. She was putting out a new album, and
Mhm.
her management team came to me and was like, I think you'd be great to be the stylist. And I was like, what's that? You know, because this is like too early 2000s, and that was not a common profession, right? There wasn't Instagram, wasn't TikTok, the internet was not popping the way it is now. And so
Mhm.
when you thought about a stylist, you mostly thought about a celebrity stylist. And
Yeah.
so I was like, well, what exactly do you want me to do? So we talked, we brainstormed, I did shopping for her, we did a whole photo shoot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I want more of this.
That sounds kind of
Um,
fun.
oh, it was so fun. It was amazing, especially when you're, working at government agencies
Oh
and
god,
doing
I know
project
all about
plans,
that,
right?
yeah. That's
You
the
need
dullest job you can have.
right. I was like, creatively, I didn't
Yeah.
even know how much I needed another outlet, and styling became that.
Wow. So
Yeah.
people are just like, "You're so fabulous at this. Why don't you come do this?"
Yeah, it was, it was like my friends seeing something in me that I was thinking about,
Mhm.
but wasn't really putting a lot of effort into thinking like, could this be a career?
Mhm.
Right. But it really took my friend who was the musician, and then her manager was actually her brother, who I also went to college with.
Oh, great.
So he came to me and he was like, Nana, you have great style. I think you'd be great at this. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay. And it was an amazing experience. And then the photographer from that shoot started to refer me to other clients. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, how do we pay you? Do you have your, are we doing 1099? What's your EIN number? And I was like, I don't know what y'all talking about, because I got to go to work on Monday. So
It was all
I
fun
don't
and games.
right. This is just like a fun little thing I did this weekend, but this
Yeah.
isn't my main thing. So I got thrown into starting my business because there was a demand and they were asking for things I didn't have. So I was late nights at the coffee shop, at Barnes and Nobles with like How You Start Your Business for Dummies, right? Like that whole series of books,
Yeah.
right? Learning how to build my business and work on my website and get it registered and all those things. So then I just started getting different projects on the side and doing photo shoots, and it started, bubbling from there.
Gosh. Did you feel like you were in denial about your skills and your talents?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I don't think I was in denial.
Mhm.
I think I thought it was going to look a different way. Like I was, thinking about the skills that I had as a management consultant. And I was applying to jobs at like Macy's or Donna Karan or,
Ooh.
different companies within
Yeah.
the fashion industry, right? Or even
Yeah.
I thought about, ironically, I thought about going back to school and getting a degree at FIT. And now I teach at FIT, right? And so it was more
Dang,
like,
girl.
right? And sometimes
Yeah.
the path, you don't know where the path
Yeah.
is gonna take you. So yeah, I think it was just like, oh, I think it's supposed to look like this, but it didn't dawn on me that like, well, you could actually start your own business
Mhm.
and do this thing that you love too.
Yeah, so before we recorded this, I met with you before, and I remember you telling me that you tried to go the typical path
Yeah.
of, was it like going back to school and you kept getting rejected? And because of that, you had to think outside of the box and be creative and created that path, the path that you're on for you. Like, would you mind telling more about that?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I was sharing earlier, the management consulting was burning me out, right? I felt like I had two jobs. I was always on the road, and I was just getting to that place like I want to do something else. And so I was trying so many things. Like I said, I was applying at FIT. I was like, well, maybe I'll go back and get another degree there, and didn't get in, right? I applied for business school, right? Like, well, maybe I'll figure out a way to like take this and enter into the fashion industry, that way. Didn't get in, right? I was applying for jobs at, like I was saying, Macy's, Donna Karan, and they were like, we don't understand how your consulting experience fits into being a merchandiser or planner, right? Like, do you have any backgrounds within fashion or retail math or other skills that I didn't have, right? So it was always this like square peg round hole, and getting rejection and being like,
Right.
none of this is working. And at the same time, when this photo shoot opportunity came, I was like, okay, maybe there's a door, right? There's a door that's been opened. Like, that's not what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking about starting a business, but this is dope. And there's people calling me, asking me to
Yeah.
be a stylist for photo shoots and events. So like, I think this is cool. Let me go down this path. And so I did, and it's been great.
So they try to put you in a box. They wanted very specific, in a box. You didn't
Mhm.
have the box that they were looking for, and but you're like, but I have this. And I think for anyone who is thinking about forging their own path, whatever it is, we all have skills that we don't think we have that are so transferable to other areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. And you know, it's so important to, especially if you feel like, you know, you're a person who you might, you know, oh, a jack of all trades, right? Or like, oh, I can do so many different things. I have multiple skills. Or when someone says like, what do you do? You're like, I do a lot of things. I can do this
Yeah,
and this and this, right? You know,
right.
sometimes that can feel overwhelming, or you might people are like, oh, I'll just pick one thing. But I do think there's something magical to that as well, because you are able to tap into multiple sides of yourself. And there is something about you that is unique and different, right? Like, I fully believe that there's so important to tap into what makes you unique, right?
Mhm.
Like, that is what I help my clients do. And I do mostly work with women, and they are unique and they are different. And so whether they are at work, right, or just moving through their everyday, they often get to a place where they feel like their wardrobe is not unique and different and representing who they are in this season, right? And so, especially as you grow, right, in
Yeah.
life, and you learn, and you know, we were talking about this before, you know, as you do the work, right,
Yep.
as you do the work and you
Yep.
learn more about yourself, you just realize, like, I don't have to fit into a cookie cutter box. I don't have to look exactly like a sea of gray, navy, and khaki at the office in order to be seen as professional, right? I don't have to be in one of these 5 professions to be successful. You realize there's way more that you can do that is going to really help you have the best possible career in life that makes sense for you,
Mhm.
right? And start to feel like empowered by that and more secure in that, and not hide behind it or be like, well, kind of, sort of, right? You
Mhm.
right, you start to own it,
Yeah.
right? You start to own it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think so many women, especially women, once we climb up higher, we are told we have to stick to a certain image, that we
Hmm.
have to be very, masculine. And it's
Mm.
like, but I don't want to be masculine. I'm feminine, and I can still be a boss and be a woman and be feminine.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's interesting because, you know, one of my other first clients who started to help me evolve the way I was looking at styling, was actually my manager.
Okay.
And she came to me one day and she was like, "Non, I think I need your help." And I'm like, "What's up?" And she's like, "I'm going for a promotion at work. But when it comes to my executive presence, I don't feel like my wardrobe is what it needs to be, right?" And so I'm in these rooms with partners and executives, and she's like, my work product is on point, like I feel poison ready, but when I look at my wardrobe, I'm just like, this doesn't feel like the best of me, right?
Mhm.
And you know, when I started to work with her and we were really building out, what does her personal style look like? What's her wardrobe look like? It was so important to focus on her, right? It was
Mhm.
not about what does this look like for, you know, someone who is trying to climb the ladder in a traditional way, that's like a certain idealistic view of what executive presence is, right? Because sometimes people hear
Mm.
those 2 words and they immediately is like, black suits, gray, navy, khaki, that's the color palette. You don't do anything else. Everything is minimal, simplistic, right? Don't add a lot of color. You know, it's not really about dresses and floral prints. That's too feminine, right? You want to keep things really kind of straightforward and concise and clean cut. and you start to feel that pressure,
Yeah.
right? And you
Right.
feel that pressure. And so it was so important for her to feel at her best and most confident as her, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's her version of that, right? And I think that's the kind of challenge that I love to take on with every new client is, how can I help you feel like a powerful leader, an empathetic
Mhm.
leader, a strong leader, and at the end of the day, confident, right? Is bottom line, the big common denominator in what every single woman that I work with wants is more confidence in how she looks and how she presents herself. So that confidence looks so different depending on the person, right? It has to be authentic to you. And so it can't, that's why, you could take two people into the same store
Mhm.
and they're gonna both walk out with two totally different looks, right? But still
Mhm.
can still be confident in each of those different looks, yet it has to feel authentic to them.
Yeah. Do you ever face a situation where you kind of have to drag it out of the women and, because they've been so used to a certain image or being small and diminutive that you're like, you can be more. Do you work with a lot of women on that? Like bringing out the confidence in them, bringing out the women in them?
Yeah, that's 100%. 100%. There's so much like indoctrination that has to be rewritten, right?
Mhm.
And so much permission granted,
Yeah.
right? Like, I will have conversations with women and they'll ask like, well, Nana, can I wear red to work? And I'm like, I don't know, can you? you
Mm,
know, like,
can
of
you?
course you
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
right? Right? Of course you can, but can you? Like, are you
Yeah.
going to do it in a way that you're gonna own it? You're gonna
Yeah.
unapologetically feel very like 10 toes deep in that, right? And it's really challenging because you're taking usually a decade plus of time working in a corporate environment, that literally when you go and you have orientation and they tell you what professional dress is, they literally give you this code of this uniform, right? Of this white
Mhm.
shirt, gray pantsuit, a flat, right? And all these neutral colors. And they say, this is what professional looks like. And
Mhm.
then what's so interesting about that, and it's such an oxymoron, because at some point when you realize like how powerful you are and how unique and skilled and talented you are with your gifts, and you want to start to stand out as a leader in your field,
Mhm.
whether it's a thought leader or go for a promotion or build your business, you realize you can't do it looking like everybody else. You can't do it
Mhm.
sounding like everybody else. You can't do it showing up like everybody else. You are like, oh, I have to forge a different path. Like, I have to
Mhm.
show up differently. And that's when the fork in the road comes and you're like, I don't want to wear that stuff that I had,
Mhm.
right, when I was the junior version of me, because I didn't really have a strong sense of who I was. So I work with a lot of women who are at that transition point where they're looking in their closet and they're just like, none of this reflects who I am. None of this feels like me. And we do have to say that's because it's not who you are in this season,
Yeah.
right? You are a totally different woman and you want to become
Mhm.
a different woman.
Yeah.
So we've got to shed things that don't connect with you anymore.
Yeah. When you said red, I remember like red lipstick. How it's such a taboo. It's like,
For
do
real.
I do I wear red lipstick? Is that unprofessional? Do I do it or not? Rock
Yeah.
it. If you can rock the red lipstick, rock it.
Yes, 1,000%, 1,000%. And it's, and you have to find the things that work for you, right? Like, I tell a lot of my clients when they're thinking about their looks and like, Nana, what do I need to have together? I always tell them, like, think about the cab. You want to have your clothing, your accessories, and your beauty, right? CAB, clothing, accessories, beauty. You want to have all three of those to feel like you have a complete look, a complete
Mhm.
outfit. Oftentimes folks get dressed and they put the clothes on and then maybe they don't add the earring, maybe they don't add the necklace or the bracelet or the handbag, right? Or they just are like, I don't have time to do anything with my hair, with my makeup, with my skincare, or like, oh, I feel too pressured, I'm just going to keep it minimal, right? You want to make time and you want to make choices that you know work well for you. So if you're not a red lipstick to work girl, that's all right. But like
Mhm.
maybe you want to play with red in your accessories, right? Maybe it's going to be a red ring, or it's going to be a red pair of earrings, or a statement pair of red glasses, right?
Mhm.
Like there's so many different ways that you can figure out what feels authentic to you, especially when
Yeah.
you think about it in terms of how does that look like for my clothes, my accessories, and my beauty.
Mhm. Hearing you talk, I just think of the word investment.
Mm,
It's like we have to invest in ourselves.
hmm.
And our image is our whole investment.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's, you know, I realize this, and I'm grateful for the women I work with because they remind me of this.
Mhm.
Is that it's so much bigger than the clothes,
Yeah.
right? And I think that definitely working in the way that I do, there's so much around coaching, style coaching, confidence coaching, and really being, I'm a cheerleader for my people. Like
Yeah.
all day, I'm gonna be the one texting you. Like I know you got a big presentation today. You're gonna smash it. The look is on fire. Like you go into that room and you own it. You know your ish, and it's like thank you, thank you, thank you, because sometimes you need that, right?
Mhm.
And your image is so much. It includes all of these different elements of how you show up in every space on a consistent basis,
Mhm.
right? You really have to think about how you are consistently showing up. And I always like to have folks, have my clients think about like what are three words you would use to describe yourself, right?
Mm.
What are three things that you would want people to say about you when you're not in the room,
Mm.
right? Because sometimes some of the biggest decisions about your career and your life, sometimes they happen. You ain't even in that room because people are talking
Right.
about you based on the image and the brand that they've experienced. So, what do you want them to say, right? And what are you doing every single day that's helping that come through?
That's so powerful. You are essentially building a brand. You're helping women build a brand.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Absolutely. And over time, too, like this is, your style evolves, right? Your brand evolves, like we love to call on, you probably see this all the time where people are like, what would you tell your 21-year-old self or your 18-year-old self,
Yeah,
right?
right.
With each new decade or milestone birthday, like you
Yeah.
you realize you learn so much through experience, and you hopefully
Mhm.
are gaining your ways to have more confidence in who you are, so that when you enter into spaces, you know how to introduce yourself, how to walk up to someone even though it might be uncomfortable, right? How to break the ice and have conversation, or how to clearly articulate a thought or idea, right? Like there are
Mhm.
all these kind of just small but really impactful ways that you showcase your appearance, your body language, right? Your communication, to give people just a window into who you are. And it's sometimes, I think, it can be overlooked because we're just sometimes so focused on the work, right? And the work product, and
Mhm.
let me excel, and like I just want this to be this, this document, this deliverable to be great, this meeting to go well, all these things. And there are so many other non-work product related pieces that factor into the brand that you're building, that you want to take stock of.
Mhm. Yeah. So where like your clients, where like when do they come to you? When do they know that it's time to come to you? I know that you said, who are wanting a promotion or, in a certain time of their life. Like when is it best to come like say, you know what, I'm ready for a style confidence and an image consultant.
Yes, I love that. You know, when you, I think like two things will happen.
Hmm.
Either one, you are opening up your closet, and every time you open up your closet, you're like, I'm not excited to wear anything that's in here.
I think a lot of women can relate to that.
Right?
Like, I have nothing to wear, and you see, and everybody's like, "You have this and this," but it's like, I have nothing to wear.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I have nothing to wear.
Yeah, exactly. And that's you. That's your personal connection to your wardrobe and how you show up every day. And if you're opening those closet doors and every day you're like, nothing in here excites me, nothing feels good, like I've had things forever, I don't know what to do with, like you want to feel inspired and good when you up because you get dressed every single day, right?
Mhm.
This is something you do every single day. And we already established this is a communication tool,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're opening up that closet and it is given the meh vibe, you should be reaching out to someone who can help you elevate your wardrobe. And then the other piece is definitely a moment of transition in your career or your life, right? For the women that I work with, they're mostly in the corporate space and they're, typically in like management to C-suite level positions. So they are often looking at a promotion, going for promotion or recently promoted. Um, they are looking to like establish their own side
Mhm.
hobby through their
Mhm.
expertise, and maybe they're looking to do some consulting on the side,
Yeah.
right? That's often a common thread. Or they're looking to start their own business, right,
Mhm.
and make the transition and go fully into that space. So for a lot of the women that I work with, there's a serious transition happening in their career, right?
Mhm.
That is something that they're like, oh, this is really important for me now to start dressing more for the woman I'm becoming, not for who I
Mm.
was, right? I
Mm.
can't stay dressing and showing up to spaces looking like a junior analyst when I'm
Yeah.
in the C-suite. Like,
Right.
no sis, we need you to make sure the clothes are tailored. We need to make
Mm.
sure that we're pampering ourselves, like
Yeah.
we're taking care of our nails, right? We're taking care
Mhm.
of our beauty hygiene regimen. You're doing your skincare,
Mhm.
right? Your hair is getting done, right? You're confident in the colors that you're wearing, right? Like the accessories on point, the quality of your pieces and the investment that you're making has increased, right? Like these are the types of changes that happen, especially when you've made or are making that kind of shift in your career. um, and when you think about it too, like, I definitely invite women to like really identify those people who might be in their immediate circle in their life, or even if it is someone in the celebrity space,
Mhm.
whose style and whose image and presence
Mhm.
really feels confident and authentic. And
Yeah.
every time you see them, you're like, man, she is so on point.
Yeah.
Like, create that mood board with
Mhm.
images of that person to inspire you, because
Mhm.
that's a space that you know that you connect with that person, and start to like, put your detective hat on. Like, what do you notice?
Yeah.
Right? How has their style evolved? What's changed? Right? That can be a great way for you to start to self-reflect and think like, what do I need to make shifts on in terms of how I'm showing up?
Mhm. I love that. I love that. And one question before we end. Actually, this is my question before.
Mhm.
At what would you say like most of your clients like age group are? Like when do they come to you? Like are they in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or like when do they start seeking out your services?
Yeah, most of my clients are between their 30s and 60s.
Okay.
So I have some clients who, I mean, if they're in their 30s, they are definitely looking at promotions,
Yeah.
typically into like some of their first serious leadership positions. Um, and then getting into 40s, 50s, and 60s is often C-suite or CEO of their own company, maybe director, partner levels. I work with a lot of attorneys, doctors, folks
Mm.
in healthcare. Um, you know, yeah, multiple spaces in industry, tech. But I think the bottom line is they also understand the importance of really being confident in their looks. And they also understand they want to be that all the time,
Mhm.
right? Like that's something they desire to have for themselves all the time. And it's like they want that all the time. And then they also don't have the time.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Like I want to be stylish and confident all the time, but I
Mhm.
don't have the time or the knowledge to
Yeah.
achieve that.
Mhm.
So these are women that understand you need to outsource, right?
Yeah.
They will hire, they will build their team. And when they're thinking about the team of people who they need to help them show up in life at their best, having a style expert is right up there with having a personal chef and a housekeeper and the nanny and whatever spaces, right? And the fitness instructor,
The
right?
therapist.
The therapist, number one, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, right? She's
Yeah.
she's that woman.
Yeah, my gosh. Again, I want to be very mindful of your time because I know you're busy, and I would love to have a longer conversation with you on this because it's just so fascinating. It's just so fascinating, and I think as women, as we change the world, as we empower ourselves and start owning it, I think what we need is so different from what we've been told what we need. And we're finding
Mm-hmm.
all that. When you made that list, I'm like, yes, yes. Like you have to build your wellness team.
Yes,
And an image consultant, a therapist, chef, nanny, that is all part of your wellness team.
yes, yes,
Yeah. And so what
yes.
our needs are so different from like men who are CEOs. I was watching this about how somebody said, Mark Cuban deserves to wear t-shirts. I'm like, would a woman of Mark Cuban's caliber be would they be as forgiving?
Mm-hmm.
Would they be
Mm-hmm.
as forgiving for a woman who is a billionaire to get to wear t-shirts and flip-flops?
Right. No.
I don't think so. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
No.
Yeah. And so it's so different from women versus men. And I'm not trying to make this a women versus men, but we don't have as much grace. And so we
Totally.
are expected to, and even though we may not want to or like this, but we are held to a higher standard, especially on our physical and our image and our brand.
100%, without a doubt. Without a
Mhm.
doubt. That is the way that society has set this up, right? And those double standards fully exist. You could
Mhm.
I'm sure every woman listening to this could call out specific examples in her
Oh, yeah.
own life, right? Where
Yeah.
she has felt that double standard. Um and I think, what I shared to that is there does become, I think, a point that you can begin to reclaim how you handle that situation so that you're more in a position of power and influence and authority over that, right, versus being reactive and impacted by that. So
Mhm.
that looks like you saying that this is a priority for me and I'm going to show up in the way that's best reflective of who I am, and I'm going to do that consistently, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to do that consistently all the time. Like I know I'm going to be judged. I know I'm going to be under the microscope. But guess what? When you look, honey, baby, the way you are going to be like, well, looky
Pretty baby.
here,
Yeah,
right?
right?
You're going to be like, well, look at you. Well, look at what we got under the microscope.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm fly. I'm confident. I'm self assured. And like, what you want to see? Are we done? Okay, great. Let's get to work. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're gonna be there,
Mhm.
and you're gonna have no, trepidations or worries or concerns about someone taking a deeper look at you. Go ahead and look. Like
Mhm.
what you got? Because if I flip this microscope, are we gonna see the same thing? I don't know.
I love that. I love that. It's about working with it versus against it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to ask you another question, but I know that we are limited on time. And again, I want to be respectful.
I
And
appreciate it.
yeah. And so, again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. I love discussing, not discussing all of this with you. And I will include all of, I'm going to say this in Nana's information, her website, everything on there because wonderful conversation. Again, I wish we could make this longer. And if anybody wants to, have would like to have a conversation again, I'm open to this. But if you want to work with Nana, please, check all her information. And I love this. Thank you. As I said before, you are so fly. I'm glad I met you.
Oh, me too. The power of LinkedIn. Thank you so
Woohoo!
much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. And so, again, thank you for joining me. And for anybody who's new to my podcast or YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button if you like this episode. So, again, thank you so much and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.